Hi you guys! It's release week for Lola in the Middle and I said I would make you some videos and answer some of your questions. So, here are the questions. Let's get into it. Here's a question which says, are you going to write a new story about characters from other books of yours? For example, Ava from How Not to Be Popular. Of course I could. Ava is a great character, for example. She has a lot going on. She's a great personality. My problem is always, what's going to happen to these girls? What plot can I come up with? And to be honest, I'm not the world's best plot maker, so I've got to really think hard to think about what challenge Ava, for example, could come up against. And then I've got to figure out all the little details, and then I've got to write the book. So yes, in theory, and I think if everybody wants an Ava story, we should have an Ava story, right? She's a great character. Who is the book for? Lola in the Middle is for girls aged 9 to 12. That's your basic thing. But anyone who likes netball, anyone who's living with diabetes type 1, anyone who loves Kangaroo Valley or stories about Australian towns, I think will like this book. It's not all about netball, it's not a total sports story, and there's plenty of stuff going on like in all my stories. It's basically about girls and their friendships and being brave. So if you like stories about brave-hearted girls, age 12, she's in year 6, so it's kind of that age, then Lola is for you. What or who is real in Lola in the Middle? If you've been hanging around with me for a while, you may know that I do best when I can kind of steal my characters and steal my settings from real life situations. And so that's why we have 3 books in the Kangaroo Valley School series, because I used to live in Kangaroo Valley and I thought, you know what? I don't have to make anything up. This is a perfect town and a perfect school to set a whole series of stories in. So, Lola in the Middle. What's real in here? There are some people who are real. Mrs. Robinson is definitely real. It's her real name. She really teaches at Kangaroo Valley School. She's a great teacher. I love her very much, and she gave me permission to put her in the book. So everything that you read in here about Mrs. Robinson is me going, what would Mrs. Robinson do, the real one, do in this situation? Oh, I'll just write that down. So I did. The other real character in here is Mariella, the netball coach, who is a real person, who really did run the pizza shop in Kangaroo Valley and really does coach netball. And she loves netball and she's a great coach. She has a lot of time for the girls she trains and she is just a great person. So I wanted to put her in. I asked her, she said, yep, no problem. So she's in there, she's a real person. Kangaroo Valley, the town, is real. Kangaroo Valley School is real. Also what's real is the fact that the plot is based on a real situation. So a few years ago, the Kangaroo Valley Year 6 girls made it playing netball all the way to state finals. Now, this is a tiny school of, I think it was about 95 kids, tiny town, not really from a strong netball area, and yet they beat every team they came up against. We just happened to have a really good team that worked really well together that year, and they made it from tiny town all the way to state finals. It was really an amazing thing, and they were kind of heroes of the town for a little while. So that was based on reality. What's not real? Well, everything else. The friendships, the people, like the main characters. Lola, she's not real. Lola getting diabetes is not real. Although I do know people who have diabetes and who've been diagnosed with that. So I did go and do some research and ask people what it was like to live with that. So we came up with that. But yeah, kind of real, kind of not. This question says, what was the best part of writing Lola? Oh, for me, it was finishing. Because this book, she took a long time to get this little one out. In fact, in the time when I was supposed to send a book to my publisher, I got to about 6 weeks before the due date, and I thought, I can't finish Lola, it's too hard. And so what I did actually was sit down and scramble out How Not to Be Popular really, really quickly. So How Not to Be Popular was not even on the cards when Lola was in the middle of being done. Why did I find Lola difficult? I think it was the diabetes, actually, and the fact that she wasn't a sort of a bouncy character. She's more of a quiet, strong character, but a quieter person. And so I found that a little bit difficult to write. Not difficult, but a bit ambitious. Perhaps she wasn't difficult to write. Perhaps she just didn't emerge so fully formed as other characters have. Anyway, so finishing this was great, but I did come back to her after How Not to Be Popular, and I went, Lola deserves another go. And I think we did it. I think we got her on the page, and I think she's a great character. And girls who are people pleasers or who peacemakers, you know, we always have to please everybody else. I think you're going to get a lot out of this book, because a lot of it is about finding the strength to speak the truth to people and speak the truth to your friends. Wow, that's such a hard thing to do when you're 11 or 12 years old. One more question from my readers. I asked people to send me in questions, and I said, for example, you could say silly things like, what colour are your slippers? Well, I got that question. What colour are your slippers, Cecily? Sad to say, I don't have any slippers. I wear socks around the house, and they're mostly white. So there you go, all that you needed to know about my slippers. I have one more question. It's not about the book, it's about me. And the question is, did you get your nose pierced? Well, the answer is yes, I did. And if you look really closely, just there, you can see that you can actually still see the hole. Okay, the reason I got my nose pierced, I wanted to be cool. You may laugh, but back in the day when I was 18, I was kind of a dag, and I was going to university, and I thought, I actually would like to be known as slightly cooler than I really am. And maybe if I get my nose pierced, because no one else was doing it then, maybe if I get my nose pierced, I will be seen as automatically cool without having to try very hard. Also, I grew up in Pakistan, where almost every woman and every girl has their nose pierced from a very small age, from a very young age. And so I thought, well, that would be kind of cool. You know, I grew up in Pakistan, I could get my nose pierced, there's a connection. So my friend and I were traveling to Pakistan when we were 18. We were going back to our old school to see our friends. And we both thought, wouldn't it be a good idea to get our noses pierced in Pakistan? Because culturally that's kind of interesting and it's a great story. So we decided we would do it, and we went to a jeweler's shop, and I went in with my friend and I pushed her ahead of me because she was the brave one. And she said to the young fellow behind the jeweler's shop desk, I'd like to get my nose pierced. He said, really? Because that's not very fashionable now. And we said, no, we want to get our noses pierced. He went, okay. He was terrified, utterly terrified. So he got out the staple gun thing that you pierce your nose with. He set it all up, and then, you know, I'm pushing my friend forward, you do it first. So he put the gun on her nose and he went ka-chunk, but it didn't go through. And the earring thing was just kind of teetering on the edge of her nose, and there was this red dot of blood bubbling up underneath it. And she's very brave, and she said, try again. And so he went ka-chunk again, and it still didn't go through. And I have no idea what was wrong with, maybe it was the mechanism that was wrong, or maybe he was just not brave enough to really pull it the way it was supposed to, but it didn't work again. And so by this time my friend was a little bit pale and sort of in shock. And so we said, okay, that's it, we'll go out. So we left the shop. I said to my friend, I'm just going to go over there and have a look at this jacket that I saw. She said, I might just get a drink. Anyway, I came back 5 minutes later to find her on the floor, fainted, with a group of Afghani men sort of standing around looking very worried. And she'd fainted because of our nose-piercing adventures in Pakistan. We ended up getting them done in England on our travels after that. I wore it for about 3 years, much to the horror of my mother and my grandmother and the tiny town, Australian town that I lived in at the time. These days, nobody would even blink, but in those days, it was a really big deal. I went to uni, I was very cool apparently. I didn't think I was cool, but you know, it looked good. And then I took it out when I worked for some lawyers because I wanted to be respectable. So that's the answer to the question, did you get your nose pierced? Why, yes I did. Thanks for asking.